You never feel them watching. That is the first lie they let you believe. I am writing this by candlelight in a basement in Riften, and my hands will not stop shaking. 3 Daedric Princes have touched my soul. 3 of them looked into the depths of what I am and found something worth claiming. I escaped 2 of them. The 3rd still owns a piece of me that I will never recover. They call us champions. The princes call us instruments. But I know what we really are. We are answers to questions that immortal beings have been asking since before Mundus existed. And the question is always the same. What makes a mortal interesting enough to own? I was nobody. Let me make that clear before I tell you how they find us. I was a fisherman's daughter from a village so small it did not appear on any map. I could gut a salmon faster than anyone in my family, and I knew the tides of the Sea of Ghosts like I knew my own heartbeat. That was the sum of my existence. Fish, salt, cold water, endless grey skies. But I had a secret. Everyone who catches a prince's attention has a secret, even if they do not know it themselves. Mine was simple. I hated the world. Not in the dramatic way that bards sing about, not with fire and passion and clenched fists raised against the heavens. I hated it quietly, patiently. I gutted those fish and imagined they were the faces of everyone who had ever told me that this would be my life forever. I smiled at my neighbors and calculated exactly how much lamp oil it would take to burn their houses down. I was 19 years old, and I had never acted on any of it, never even raised my voice in anger. That restraint, that perfect performance of normalcy while something dark festered underneath, that is what they saw. That is what drew the first of them to me. You need to understand that Daedric Princes do not choose champions the way a Jarl chooses a Thane. There is no interview, no application, no moment where you stand before them and plead your case. The choosing begins long before you ever know you are being watched. Sometimes it begins before you are even born. They have agents everywhere, not just the obvious cultists in their black robes chanting in abandoned ruins. I mean everywhere. The beggar who watches the market square and reports which merchants cheat their customers, the travelling merchant who notes which villagers have secrets worth exploiting, the dying soldier who whispers prayers to something other than the divines, the court wizard who collects more than just magical artifacts. These agents do not always know they are agents. Some serve the princes knowingly, trading information for power or protection, or simply because they have already been claimed. But many are just ordinary people whose minds have been touched so lightly they never realize it. A thought planted here, a compulsion to write down what they see there. The information flows upward through channels that mortals cannot perceive, and eventually it reaches ears that exist outside of time itself. The princes are patient. When you exist eternally, what is a mortal lifetime? They can watch a family for generations, waiting for the right combination of traits to emerge. They can nudge events subtly, ensuring that certain bloodlines cross, that specific experiences shape a developing mind. By the time a potential champion is born, some princes have already been cultivating the conditions for centuries. Hermaeus Mora is perhaps the most patient of them all. The demon of knowledge does not want warriors or assassins. Mora wants collectors, seekers, mortals who cannot resist the pull of forbidden information. I knew a scholar once who told me his great-grandmother had been visited in dreams by something with too many eyes. She wrote down what she saw and hid the writings. Her son found them and was compelled to add his own observations. His daughter continued the work. By the time my scholar friend was born, he had inherited a library of secrets that drew him deeper and deeper into Mora's orbit, without him ever understanding why he could not stop researching, could not stop seeking, could not stop reaching for knowledge that burned his mind. Mora chose him not for anything he did, but for what his family had been bred to become. Mora's champions are not found, they are grown. Boethiah chooses differently. The prince of plots and murder wants no carefully cultivated bloodlines. Boethiah wants survivors, betrayers, mortals who will do whatever is necessary to rise above those around them. The method of choosing is brutally direct. Boethiah's cultists find candidates and bring them together, and then they watch. The trials are not puzzles to solve or beasts to slay. The trials are each other. I met a Boethiah champion once, a woman with scars on her face and absolutely nothing behind her eyes. She told me that she had been chosen from a group of 12. They were locked in a chamber beneath a mountain with a single exit that only one person could pass through. There was no food, No water. Only a simple altar with a blade. Boethiah's voice filled their minds, promising freedom and power to whoever emerged. She did not tell me exactly what happened in that chamber over the following weeks. She did not need to. The scars on her hands told the story clearly enough. When she emerged, she wore armor that seemed to drink the light around it. The ebony mail, they call it. Boethiah's mark of favor for those who prove themselves worthy through blood. That is what Boethiah wants. Not the strongest or the smartest. The one who survives. The one willing to become something that other mortals would call a monster. Boethiah's champions are not chosen for their potential. They are chosen for what they prove they are already willing to become. Molag Bal prefers to break his champions before claiming them. The king of domination wants the strongest wills precisely so that he can crush them. His agents identify mortals of exceptional willpower and then systematically destroy everything that makes them strong. Family killed, lovers corrupted, friends turned to enemies, fortune crumbled to ruin, and when the mortal finally breaks, when they reach the absolute bottom of despair and rage, Molag Bal appears with an offer. Power. The power to take revenge on everyone who hurt you. The power to never be broken again. All you have to do is bend the knee. All you have to do is admit that domination is the only truth in this universe, and that you would rather dominate than be dominated ever again. Those who accept become his champions. Those who refuse, well, Molag Bal is not wasteful. He finds other uses for souls that strong. The night air in my village always smelled like salt and rotting fish. I remember that smell when I think about how my own choosing began. I was walking home from the docks after a long day of work, and I saw a stranger standing at the edge of the village. He was tall and thin with robes that seemed to shift color when you were not looking directly at them. He smiled at me. Nothing more than that. Just a smile from a stranger in the dark. But something in that smile reached inside me and touched the hatred I had kept so carefully hidden. I felt seen for the first time in my life, truly seen. And it terrified me. I ran home and locked the door and told myself I was being foolish. But that night I dreamed of a realm where the sky was made of ink and the ground was covered in writing that squirmed like living things. A voice spoke to me. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It said my name. It said it had been watching me. It said that my hatred was beautiful, that my secret darkness was rare and precious, and that great things awaited me if I would only reach out and take them. I woke up screaming. But there was something else mixed with the fear. Something that felt almost like hope. That is how Hermaeus Mora begins. Not with violence or trials or broken wills. With temptation. With the promise that your secrets make you special. With the suggestion that the knowledge you crave is waiting just within reach. The demon of knowledge works through curiosity and the desperate desire to be more than ordinary. Every mortal who has ever felt like they do not belong, who has ever suspected that there must be something more, who has ever hungered for answers that normal life cannot provide, that mortal is a potential candidate. Mora does not need to find you. Mora waits until you start looking for something beyond the edges of your ordinary world. And then, gently, almost lovingly, Mora begins to guide what you find. I should have stopped. I should have run to the temple and begged the priests for protection. But I was 19, and I had spent my entire life feeling like a monster pretending to be a person, and suddenly something was telling me that the monster was the real me, the better me, the version of me that deserved to exist. I started asking questions, just small ones at first. I found the village elder, who was known for his knowledge of old stories, and asked him about the Daedric Princes. His reaction should have warned me. He went pale and asked me why I wanted to know. I lied and said I was just curious. He told me to forget such things and pray to the divines for guidance. But he also told me where to find the ruins of an old shrine, 3 days' walk into the wilderness. He told me not to go there. He begged me not to go there. And that, of course, is exactly what made me go. The shrine was nothing but crumbling stone and broken pillars, but there was a book waiting on the altar. A book that had no right to still exist after centuries of exposure to the elements. A book that opened itself when I approached and showed me pages covered in knowledge that made my head spin. I read for 3 days without eating or sleeping. When I finally stopped, I knew things about the nature of reality that no mortal should know, and I knew that I had passed some kind of test. The choosing is not a single moment. That is another misconception. You are not standing in your ordinary life one day and claimed by a Daedric prince the next. The choosing is a process, a gradual wearing away of the barriers between your mortal existence and the attention of something eternal. The candle beside me flickers as I write this. I pause, listening. Was that a footstep upstairs? No. Just the old building settling. But my hands shake harder now, and I must continue before I lose my nerve. Mehrunes Dagon, the Prince of Destruction, looks for rage. Not anger, not frustration, but the kind of burning fury that wants to tear the world apart and remake it through violence. His agents watch battlefields and prison camps, and anywhere that suffering creates the specific type of broken mortal who wants to destroy everything rather than continue to endure. The more powerful the mortal before they broke, the more Dagon wants them. A peasant who wants revenge is useful. A general who wants to burn armies is valuable beyond measure. Sheogorath's choosing is the most unpredictable, which surprises no one. The mad god selects champions based on criteria that make no sense to mortal minds. Sometimes Sheogorath claims those who are already mad. Sometimes Sheogorath claims the most rigidly sane minds specifically to break them in entertaining ways. I met a Sheogorath cultist who told me he was chosen because he sneezed at exactly the right moment during a thunderstorm. I met another who was chosen because she wrote poetry about cheese. There is no pattern. There is no way to predict it. Sheogorath's champions are claimed because they make the mad god laugh, or curious, or simply because claiming them at that moment amused Sheogorath more than not claiming them would have. Hircine chooses through the hunt. Sometimes you are the hunter. Sometimes you are the prey. The Prince of the Wild watches for mortals who demonstrate exceptional cunning or exceptional resilience in survival situations. Those who track dangerous game with skill. Those who escape death through quick thinking and animal instinct. Those who feel more alive in the wilderness than they ever do in civilization. The werewolves of the companions in Whiterun are examples of champions that Hircine cultivates through proxies. The bloodline passes from person to person, and each new werewolf is watched. Most are useful but unremarkable. But occasionally one emerges who hunts with such savage joy, who embraces the beast within so completely, that Hircine takes personal interest. Nocturnal selects thieves, but not just any thieves. The Mistress of Shadows wants those who understand that luck is a force that can be influenced. Her agents monitor the criminal underworld for those whose heists should have failed but somehow did not. For those who slip through shadows more quietly than physics should allow. For those who treat theft not as a profession but as an art form bordering on the spiritual. The nightingales who guard the Twilight Sepulchre are not simply her champions. They are the visible tip of a network of shadow agents who have traded pieces of their souls for gifts that make them nearly invisible. Water drips somewhere in the darkness beyond my candle's reach. I have been writing for hours now, and the cold of the basement has seeped into my bones. But I cannot stop. This knowledge must exist somewhere outside my head before they find me again. 6 months after I found that book, I could no longer distinguish between my waking life and my dreams. The realm of Apocrypha had seeped into everything. I would be gutting fish and suddenly find myself reading a book that did not exist, learning secrets that made my previous knowledge seem like a child's primer. I would be sleeping and find myself walking through my village, except the village was wrong, the angles subtly off, and everyone's faces were pages of unread text. I knew I was being claimed. I knew I should fight it, but the knowledge was intoxicating. Every question I had ever asked about why the world was so unjust, why I was trapped in a life I hated, why I had been born with this darkness inside me, Hermaeus Mora answered them all. And with each answer came another question, deeper and more dangerous, pulling me further in. That is when Boethiah noticed me. I think my growing power attracted attention. Or perhaps it was simply that Mora's claim on me was not yet complete and other princes saw an opportunity. Whatever the reason, I woke one night to find a different presence in my mind. This one did not tempt or seduce. This one commanded. Boethiah showed me what I could become if I embraced my hatred openly instead of hiding it. Showed me images of myself standing over the corpses of everyone who had ever constrained me. Showed me the pure freedom of being someone who takes what they want without apology or restraint. For a moment, I almost accepted. My secret darkness reached toward that vision like a plant towards sunlight. But Mora was already inside me too deeply. I felt the Prince of Forbidden Knowledge wrap around my soul like chains made of sentences, and I heard a whisper that said I already belonged to something greater than simple violence. The two powers warred within me that night. My body convulsed. Blood poured from my nose and eyes. I screamed things in languages I did not know. And when morning came, I was still alive, but I was no longer entirely the person I had been. Boethia had retreated, denied but not defeated. Mora had tightened its grip. And I understood something fundamental about how Daedric princes choose their champions. They do not share. When a prince claims you, truly claims you, your soul bears a mark that other princes can see. Some marks are stronger than others. Some can be overwritten by a more powerful claim. But the princes are jealous entities who hoard their champions like dragons hoarding gold. A mortal who attracts the attention of multiple princes becomes a battleground, and not every mortal survives that war. The smart ones find a way to commit to a single prince before others take notice. They seek out the cults, perform the rituals, bind themselves willingly before circumstances force a worse choice upon them. The unlucky ones, like me, become caught between competing claims, with no good options remaining. Azura chooses through prophecy. The Prince of Dusk and Dawn sees strands of fate that other beings cannot perceive, and Azura's champions are selected because of what they will do, not what they have done. This makes Azura's choosing feel almost random to outside observers. A seemingly ordinary person suddenly receives visions, is guided by the star that Azura manifests, and becomes central to events they never sought. The Nerevarin is the most famous example. Whatever mortal soul inhabited that body, Azura had been preparing for their arrival for centuries. The prophecies were planted, the circumstances were arranged. When the right soul finally emerged, Azura's agents recognized the signs and guided them toward their destiny. Azura's champions rarely feel chosen in the way that other Daedric champions do. They feel fated, destined, as if the universe itself has shaped them for a purpose. This is intentional. Azura prefers willing instruments who believe they are fulfilling cosmic destiny rather than serving a Daedric prince. Mephala works through deception. The web spinner's champions are selected based on their ability to manipulate others, but also based on their willingness to be manipulated themselves. Mephala wants tools that can be pointed at targets without ever knowing who truly holds the strings. The perfect Mephala champion believes they are acting independently, while every choice they make serves the web spinner's designs. The Morag Tong assassins of Morrowind are Mephala's most visible champions, but they are far from the most effective. The truly dangerous ones are the politicians who believe their schemes are their own, the merchants who think they are building personal empires, the lovers who believe their seductions serve only personal pleasure. Mephala's web extends into every corridor of power in Tamriel, and most of those caught in it have no idea they are flies rather than spiders. Clavicus Vile chooses the desperate. The Prince of Wishes and Bargains has no interest in the strong or the satisfied. Vile wants those who are willing to trade anything for something they believe they cannot obtain otherwise. The merchants who would sell their souls for success. The grieving who would give anything to bring back the dead. The ambitious who burn with desires that legitimate means can never fulfill. Vile's agents are often disguised as helpful strangers, offering solutions to impossible problems. They make deals, they grant wishes, and they always include catches that turn the fulfilled wish into a curse. Those who accept these bargains and survive, those who learn to navigate the treacherous waters of Vile's contracts, sometimes catch the prince's personal attention. A champion of Clavicus Vile is not simply a victim of bad deals. A champion is someone who has learned to make deals of their own, twisting language and exploiting loopholes with the same skill that Vile uses against mortals. These champions become deal-makers for the prince, spreading bargains through Tamriel and collecting the souls of those who trade foolishly. The candle has burned down to half its length. I should have brought more. The shadows are growing longer, pressing in from the corners of this room, and I cannot shake the feeling that something is reading over my shoulder as I write. Namira chooses the repulsive. The Lady of Decay wants those who have been rejected by society so completely that they have nowhere left to turn except the darkness. The cannibals and the corpse-eaters, those who find beauty in rot and communion in consuming the dead. Namira's champions are rarely recruited. They emerge from conditions so terrible that they would have become monsters with or without divine intervention. Namira simply claims what society has already created. I once met a Namira cultist in a cave system beneath the Reach. She had been a noblewoman once, with fine dresses and servants, and a husband who sat on the Jarl's council. Then plague came to her hold. Her children died first, then her servants, then her husband. She buried them all with her own hands because no one else would come near the infected house. When the food ran out and the plague showed no signs of releasing her, she made a choice that damned her. She told me she felt Namira's presence for the first time when she took the first bite, a warm sensation of acceptance, a whisper that said she was not a monster, she was simply honest about what survival required. Namira had been watching her family for generations, waiting for circumstances to create someone desperate enough to embrace the truth of consumption. The plague was not random chance, it was cultivation. Sanguine chooses through excess. The prince of debauchery wants those who pursue pleasure beyond all limits, who refuse to accept that mortality should constrain their appetites. But not merely hedonists. Sanguine has no interest in those who simply enjoy life's pleasures in abundance. The prince wants those who chase pleasure as an escape from something they cannot face. The merchant who drinks because he cannot live with what he did to build his fortune. The warrior who beds strangers because intimacy reminds him of comrades he watched die. The scholar who loses herself in sensation because knowledge brought only despair. Sanguine's champions are rarely aware of what they are becoming until the transformation is complete. They believe they are simply living fully, celebrating existence, refusing to be bound by the dreary moralism that constrains lesser souls. By the time they realize that their pursuit of pleasure has become something they cannot stop even when they want to, the choosing is already finished. The rose staff that Sanguine sometimes grants to favored mortals is not truly a gift, it is a test. Those who use it to create harmless chaos and amusing diversions will never rise higher in Sanguine's estimation. But those who use it to lead others into ruin, to corrupt the innocent, to prove that every moral being has a price at which they will abandon principle, those champions earn the prince's true attention. Meridia chooses through purity of purpose, though her version of purity would strike many mortals as horrifying. The Lady of Infinite Energies despises the undead with an intensity that approaches madness. Her champions are selected for their willingness to destroy necromancy and all who practice it without mercy or hesitation. The Vigilant of Stendar, who would burn a village to eliminate one vampire. The priest who would torture a mage to extract the names of other necromancers. The warrior who sees no moral difference between killing an undead monster and killing the child that monster was before it turned. Meridia's light is beautiful. Her realm of coloured rooms is said to be the most visually stunning of all Daedric plains, but her champions carry that light as a weapon, and weapons do not discriminate between deserving and undeserving targets. Periite chooses through affliction. The taskmaster is often dismissed as the weakest of the princes, the lord of pestilence with a realm of filth and order that no one boasts about visiting. This dismissal is a mistake. Periite understands something the other princes do not, that disease is the great equalizer. Kings and beggars alike fall before plague. The mightiest warrior is humbled by fever. Periite's champions are those who survive plagues that should have killed them, emerging with strange gifts of immunity and the ability to carry contagion without suffering from it. They become vessels, walking instruments of natural balance, as Periite defines it. When a city grows too large, or a kingdom too powerful, or a population forgets its place in the natural order, Periite's champions appear to remind them. The choosing comes through survival, and the price of survival is becoming an agent of death. Vermina chooses through nightmares. The Dreamweaver touches every mortal mind at some point, feeding on the terror that sleep brings. But some mortals dream more vividly than others. Some carry horrors in their unconscious minds that even Vermina finds interesting. These become candidates. The choosing is gradual. First, the nightmares intensify beyond what a normal mind should be able to endure. Then the line between dreaming and waking begins to blur. The champion starts to see things that are not there, to remember events that never happened, to experience the deaths of strangers as vividly as if they were their own. By the time the transformation is complete, the champion can no longer be certain what is real and what is nightmare. They exist in both states simultaneously, conduits between Vermina's realm of quagmire and the waking world. Some say Vermina's champions are the most pitied of all Daedric servants. They did not seek power or knowledge or pleasure. They simply had minds that dreamed too deeply, and that depth attracted something that should never have noticed them. I spent 3 years as Mora's instrument before I finally escaped. Those years were the most productive and the most horrifying of my existence. I learned things about the nature of reality that still make me wake up screaming. I collected secrets that princes would kill for and that scholars would sell their families to possess. I brought 4 other souls to Mora's attention and watched as they were claimed, their eyes going distant and dreamy as the tentacles of forbidden knowledge wrapped around their minds. I was good at my work. Too good. Mora was pleased with me, and that pleasure manifested as more knowledge, deeper access, closer communion with something that existed outside of time and sanity. But I also learned something that Mora did not intend me to discover. I learned that the choosing is not permanent until the champion dies. Your soul is marked, your mind is touched, your will is bent towards serving the prince. But until the moment of death, when your soul is claimed for the prince's realm forever, there remains a thread of mortal agency, a tiny flame of the person you were before the choosing began. Most champions never find that flame. They are so transformed by their service, so dependent on the gifts their prince has granted, that the idea of existing without the bond is unthinkable. But I found mine. It burned in the center of my hatred. That same darkness that had attracted Mora in the first place. That fury at being controlled and constrained and owned by forces larger than myself. It had never truly been satisfied. Mora thought my hatred had been redirected toward Mora's enemies. But hatred that deep cannot be redirected. It can only grow. I hated Mora for choosing me, for turning my secret darkness into a chain, for making me complicit in the claiming of others, for showing me truths that made ordinary existence impossible. I burned the books Mora had given me. I carved protective runes into my own flesh that I had learned from Mora's own library. I screamed defiance into the void between realms and felt Mora's attention turn toward me with something that might have been surprise. No one I had ever met believed escaping a Daedric prince was possible. Every cultist, every scholar, every poor soul I had helped to claim, they all spoke of the bond as eternal and unbreakable. But I had learned secrets that Mora never intended to share. Secrets about the nature of Daedric bonds. Secrets about the specific rituals that maintain a prince's claim on a mortal soul. I will not share those secrets here. Some knowledge is too dangerous to spread, even to warn others. But I will tell you that it cost me everything. My connection to magic burned away. My memories of the knowledge I had gained dissolved like smoke. Every gift Mora had granted turned to ash inside me. I crawled out of that experience more mortal than I had ever been. Weak, confused, unable to remember most of what I had done during my years of service. But free. Molag Bal approached me 3 days later. The Prince of Domination saw what I had done and was impressed. Anyone who could escape one Daedric prince through pure willpower was exactly the kind of strong soul that Molag Bal wanted to break. I will not tell you how I refused that claiming. The experience still wakes me in cold sweats. I will only say that some offers are best rejected before they are fully made, and that running is not always cowardice. So here I sit in this basement in Riften, writing by candlelight with hands that will not stop shaking. 3 princes have touched my soul. I bear the scars of choices that no mortal should have to make. And I am telling you this because you need to understand what it really means when a Daedric prince chooses a champion. It is not glory. It is not power. It is not cosmic significance or divine favor or the adventure that the bards sing about. It is ownership. The princes are looking for tools, instruments, extensions of their will in a realm of reality where they cannot directly act. Every gift they grant, every power they bestow, every moment of attention they offer, these are investments. They are farmers planting seeds in mortal souls, waiting for the harvest of service and eventual consumption. The champions who embrace this role, who find meaning in being instruments of powers they can barely comprehend, perhaps they find a kind of peace. Perhaps the certainty of serving something eternal is preferable to the chaos of mortal freedom. But the champions who resist, who fight against their choosing, who claw and struggle and refuse to accept that their souls belong to anyone but themselves, we learn something that the princes would rather we not know. They need us. These cosmic beings, these entities that have existed since before time had meaning, they cannot act directly in our world. They require mortal hands to turn the pages of their designs. They require mortal minds to carry their influence into places they cannot reach. They require mortal souls to fuel their endless machinations. Without champions, a Daedric prince is just a voice echoing in an empty realm. With champions, they can shape the destiny of worlds. We are the most precious resource in the multiverse. Not because we are powerful, but because we are the interface between the infinite and the material. We are the only beings that can walk in both worlds. The princes know this. That is why they compete for us. That is why they cultivate and test and choose so carefully. If you are reading this and you feel something watching you, if you have attracted attention you did not seek, if you find yourself drawn toward knowledge or power or experiences that feel almost supernaturally compelling, understand what is happening. You are being evaluated. You are being tested. You are being considered for ownership. The choice is not whether a prince will try to claim you. If you have attracted their attention, that attempt is coming. The choice is how you will respond when it does. I chose to fight. I chose to tear myself free and accept the consequences. I lost power and knowledge, and perhaps even pieces of my own soul that I will never recover. But I am still mine. Some nights, when the candle burns low and the shadows grow long, I wonder if I made the right choice. I remember what it felt like to hold forbidden knowledge. I remember the intoxicating certainty of serving something greater than mortal concerns. I remember the power. And then I remember the look in the eyes of those I helped to claim. The moment when they stopped being people and became instruments. The way their faces went slack as something ancient wrapped around their will. I remember that I almost looked like that myself. The Daedric Princes will continue choosing champions until the stars burn out. It is their nature. It is what they are. But we do not have to make it easy for them. We do not have to go willingly into the dark. And sometimes, if we are very lucky and very stubborn and willing to sacrifice everything we have gained, we can escape. I am proof of that. I am living proof that even Daedric Princes can be defied. And that, I think, is knowledge worth sharing. Even if it costs me what little peace I have managed to find. Even if they come for me again. Some truths are worth dying for. This is one of them.